tonight in Mob Talk, a who's who of Philadelphia's organized crime family. Fox 29's Dave Stratweiser and the Inquirer's George Anastasia tell us there are few surprises in the details.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mob Talk. I'm Dave Stratweiser.
And I'm George Anastasia with the Philadelphia Inquirer.
George, this week the release of an organizational chart in a court proceeding in Atlantic City kind of gives us a look at who's who in the local mob. At the top, the CEO, no secret, Joe Legambi, the boss, but the number two man, a surprise.
Yeah, acting underboss, Marty Angelina, who was a close associate of jailed mob leader Joey Merlino, and I think a lot of people were surprised that Marty would have a position of authority within the organization.
All right, George, let's start with Marty Angelina. Why is he number two? I mean, he's a Joey Merlino faction guy. Is this a compromise to keep the Merlino faction happy?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people think it was Joe Legambi's way of throwing Joey Merlino a bone. Here's your guy, he's out of prison now, we're going to make him the number two guy. You got to remember, none of this is an exact science. This is the police department putting together a chart based on information they're gathering. The organization itself, the wise guys, don't put out a flow chart. You know, there's not a board of directors, there's not any kind of annual report. So this is all speculation. But yeah, Marty's listed in this particular document as the acting underboss, the number two guy in the organization.
Well, let's talk about the guy who's not number two, who you would expect to be number two, Anthony Staino,
right.
Who it's no secret he is Joe Legambi's confidant, the guy he trusts the most, been that way for years.
Yeah, Anthony Staino is listed as a capo and in charge of South Jersey. But I think anybody who's followed the organization here knows that Staino is Joe Legambi's number one confidant, the guy he goes to, they meet constantly. And, you know, in reality, he probably is the underboss, just in terms of this chart he's listed as a capo. I think one of the things that's happened here with this organization is it's shrunk so much that rank almost doesn't matter anymore. There's a boss and there's two or three guys that have positions of authority. Whatever you want to designate him, you can designate him, but they're the guys, they're the hierarchy. And that's I think that's reflected in this chart. It's not exact, it's not perfect, but here's the leadership. Legambi, Angelina, Lancelotti, Michael Lancelotti, the capo in Philly, and Anthony Staino, the capo in South Jersey.
Somebody who's out there but has no title is the former underboss, Steve Mazzone,
right.
Under Joey Merlino. He's kind of in a box to the side.
Yeah, that's the way the chart's set up. Steve Mazzone, Merlino faction. And talked to some law enforcement people, they said, basically that's a reflection of the fact that Steve Mazzone, since he's out on supervised release, has taken a very low profile, has not been actively involved. And so they don't know where he fits into the scheme of things. Other people who are watching this say Mazzone is very smart and he's laying back, letting things play out. He knows there may be problems coming. He doesn't want to get caught up in anything. So he's just kind of hiding in the tall grass to see what happens.
See if there's a big federal indictment. If the top guys get taken off, he steps right in.
That's part of the theory here. Yeah, there's going to be a vacuum, and who's going to fill that vacuum?
Now let's talk about somebody who's not listed on the chart, I don't believe, as a made guy,
right.
Possibly as an associate, Bent-Finger Lou Monticello.
Yeah, this particular chart did not list associates. I think if they were listed, Bent-Finger Lou would be on there. He's in a situation now where there's a trial coming up in media in September for gambling, I think loan sharking, obstruction of justice. Another trial in November in Common Police Court here in Philadelphia for aggravated assault conspiracy. And that's the more interesting of the two cases. But Bent-Finger Lou Monticello, a longtime associate of jailed mobster George Borghese, apparently is at odds with Marty Angelina, who's now the acting underboss. And according to the state police and the Attorney General's office, he was plotting at one point to have Angelina killed, subsequently decided I'm not going to whack him, but I want to have him beaten up there. In an organization, and the mob, if you're not a made guy, you can't be going after a made guy, number one. And even if you are a made guy, you don't do this without permission from the people in charge. So Bent-Finger Lou has got, I think, an underworld problem in terms of what happened here, and he's got a law enforcement problem in terms of the criminal prosecutions that are hanging over his head. And it remains to be seen how that all plays out. There's some speculation that we'll never see that aggravated assault trial, that before that goes in November, the feds will adopt some of that, and it will be part of this RICO we've been hearing about.
You're also going to see some dirty laundry getting aired out in that Philadelphia case, because you're talking about Legambi now, the boss, you're talking about Angelina, the underboss, you're talking about the go-between situation here. Stuff's going to come out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a quagmire, and for a lot of different reasons, I think probably both sides wouldn't want it to come out. You've got guys collecting loan shark money, fighting over who's entitled to the money, approaching victims and squeezing them. You've got threats, and you've got supposedly Legambi knowing this is going on or authorizing some of it. And so it's a typical federal case where you start at the bottom and you build up and you build up, and they're hoping they're going to be building up all the way to Legambi, and in addition, George Borghese, who's in jail.
George, if both of those trials occur, if there's a federal indictment, Joe Legambi is indicted, that could create a vacancy at the top of that organizational chart. Who steps in?
Well, as we've talked about, Steve Mazzone's kind of sitting in the shadows waiting. He's certainly a possibility. The other thing to remember is this process, if it happens, takes a year and a half. By that point, Joey Molino's back out on the streets, and Joey will certainly play a role in whatever happens.
Okay. That's it for Mob Talk this week. We'll see you next week.